Welcome everybody. Welcome at The Shift. The Shift started 5 years ago with a little company called Action J that pitched at WEF at the innovation part because we were doing something with AI 4 years ago. We won a little contest as most innovative startup of the WEF at that time, and the year after we came back because we were invited as the year before laureates, and we had to pitch again, or we had the opportunity to pitch. And the year after, it made such an impact on me that we said, okay, let's do a panel. Let's discuss something that is impacting in a positive way with technology, what we're doing today on society, in nature, etc. And that became like a super success. We did the year after also a panel. And this year we decided to do a whole day. So welcome at the whole day of The Shift. And we thought it was bigger than Action J, so we call it The Shift Up Now. And we're going to start shifting today, but I will explain you what this is about. So it's amazing to have you all here. It's amazing to have all those beautiful people going up the train in the mountains, seeing the sun rising on the mountains. And you're pursuing your shift individually, each of you. That means that what is making me, like wake up in the morning is what I'm going to shift today. So I'm always writing 3 things down in the morning. Even like today, I woke up, I slept 2 hours. I wrote 3 things down to say what I'm going to shift today. And I'm going to share you with them at the conclusion of today. So I'm like truly really grateful you're here, and the aim of today is to connect. We have panels with all kinds of discussions which are very interesting. We try to make it a little bit interactive also, but the aim is to connect. And why do we want to connect? You want to network because I have always mixed feelings with Davos, and you saw when we came in, traffic jams. We even almost saw Patriot rackets ready to protect everybody's coming here. But the thing is about the networking. And they call it over here the Davos moment. Well, I'm going to call it the shift moment. And this is where you need to connect and find that moment where you say, okay, this is why I came here. Last night we had a dinner with all the speakers. And I spoke yesterday at Davos. And I met somebody, met the chief architect of Microsoft, and he came to the dinner in Zurich in the evening. And we connected. We're going to do a workshop about AI, about a topic in AI. So this is what is happening, what you can do. So wherever you walk, whatever bar, outside, you take a selfie, you see people, you can network. It's called the Davos moment. Okay, what is also important is little practicalities. We'll have panels all day with different topics. Please interact. Please invite people from upstairs to come. This is how it works over here. And also I would like to say, everybody is coming here as a silo, so as an individual. What we want to do is try to connect this with the ecosystem. And you need to step out of your silo and then start ecosysteming, as I can call it like that. And that is what we're going to do today, is trying to understand certain ecosystem so you can try to shift in it. So this is just an introduction. I would also thank all the people that are made this possible. Tina, Tom, everyone, because this is really, we all know that Davos is just stress the last week before. Nothing is set before that. So everybody's running around, not sleeping, etc. So big applause for all the ones who made that possible. So I will invite the first panel. So we're going to dive into the first panel, which is quite interesting. Vincent, Hanne, everybody, Carla, Julia, etc. I will invite everybody. Big applause. And the panel is called The Future of AI, Who Shapes Reality? So we had a long debate before we started this panel. And the thing was, will they present themselves, yes or no? So we said no, I'm going to present them to make it short and crisp. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to read that from my computer, not to make any mistakes, not to offend anybody. So yes. So the thing is, this panel brings really good things together. They have each a different discipline and a different angle on what the topic I just said. And let me tell you that as we speak, somewhere in the world, somebody or a machine has taken a decision. If you're getting a loan, if you're starting in a hiring process, if you make a sale, if you put on a certain risk criteria, etc., etc. So this is happening today. And this is what we're going to talk about. So 1 million, and it will affect in the future 1 million of people. So the question is, why we're here is to explore if AI is really shaping that reality for tomorrow. All right, so let's start. I love what Julia did. So Julia in the middle, she made the art over there. So she's an artist. So have a look in between the sessions, what it is all about. I will not tell more because you need to discover it yourself, but it's about AI and the impact of AI and how it shapes our society. So I think that's, and she researching the influence of data, AI and big tech on our society. She's also the ambassador of the Dutch Data Protection Foundation and did some class actions lawsuits against Amazon, Adobe and X. So she's got 2 angles there. So interesting for the discussion. Thank you for being here, Julia. We have Stijn. Stijn is a procurement and negotiation strategist and founder of Stimax Advisory. And he's currently developing an AI-based negotiation tool that deals with the trust factor. All right, thank you, Stijn, for being here. We have Hande. Hande is a global AI strategist and board advisor with over 25 years of experience in large-scale businesses and governance transformations. Thank you, Han, for being here. And then at least we have the latest straight from Belgium, from Brussels. We have Vincent, who's an associate professor of physics, mathematics, and artificial intelligence at the University of Brussels. And he's also visiting professor at Harvard University. So, bam, that's the panel to start with. Oh, and Carla, sorry. I'm sorry, Carla. Carla is a global strategist and workforce transformation leader working at the intersection of responsible AI, governance, and future skills. Sorry, I've forgotten you. I make it up with you. So, all right. So, we have a starter's question. When it comes to AI, what keeps you up at night? So, I don't know who wants to start with that one. Yes?
Of knowing the
Please talk straight.
Sure. The responsibility of knowing the consequences of not learning it to govern it.
Okay. Somebody else want to react on that?
Yeah, I come back to the main question of our panel. Is this reality? Do we believe it, yes or no? That's the main question of the panel, and I think we'll discuss it later on, but that's the main question here.
Okay, so that was a little bit to warm it up. I think we should start with the architecture of power. So who's getting into the power? So we're going to examine who holds the power in AI, from boardrooms to platforms, and also negotiation tables, and who exposes between, like the gap between rhetoric and reality. So I'm going to ask Hande to start this one. In the boardroom, as you have that vast experience in governments, what is going on? How do you see that AI is steering the pot, as we say?
Thank you very much, Jean-Philippe. First of all, it's a great honor and pleasure to be here today with all the shifters, and thank you very much for letting me be a part of it, this movement, the shift. The question that you asked, Jean-Philippe, is a question that I ask in the boardrooms in 3 continents. And the answer, frankly, is uncomfortable because most of the boards, the main issue I can say is we are, as board members, we are perceiving this disruption as all the other disruptions that we had before. And what we do is we use the same methodology. We either assign a committee, or we delegate it to our CEOs, CXOs, and etc. And then we review the results quarterly, which is against the nature of AI, which requires the leaders really reinvent the architecture of the decisions, reinvent the way of doing business, reinvent the organizational capabilities of the company. And what I see as a pattern is, I can summarize it in 3 items. One is the asymmetry of the knowledge. Few of the board members are born into machine learning. So when somebody speaks about AI in the boardrooms, they nod along, but they hardly ask questions that they need to be asking, like what is the training data, so how is it diverse enough, is it ethical enough, and then, so this is the main issue about the disruption and then the failure of governance. The second one is the misalignment of the incentives. Although on paper, we say that all the board members are responsible of mid and long-term success of the business, in this economic and political turbulence, the shareholders want the results now. And ethics and responsibility is perceived as a cost center, and it takes bravery and courage for a board member to direct the attention to this side. And the third, and maybe the hardest one, is the fear of ignorance, actually, fear of not knowing it. And so then we have the dangerous strategic silence in the boardroom when somebody brings the AI projects and they just don't want to admit that they don't know it. And what I see is, in this year and going forward, the lack of awareness or lack of knowledge of AI in the boardrooms will have the same effect of lack of awareness of financial insights in the boardrooms. If you don't know, then you can't govern it, and if you can't govern it, then the results will be unexpectedly very dangerous for all the companies. So having an AI policy doesn't mean that you govern it. So that's why what I see in summary is, unfortunately, the lack of attention to this matter, to do it in a responsibly and ethical way.
Thank you, Hande. Okay, I spoke in the beginning about the art that is hanging on the wall over there. So Julia put that there. She put a lot of work in there, I know. The question is, or I know, it's a question of influence from ChatGPT. So we all know that OpenAI has it's an American company, so it has a cultural influence. We all know Le Mistral has different cultural impact. We all know the Chinese and the Russian have their own cultural battle that they put, like underlying into there. And then the question comes, okay, we all know that the business model from OpenAI today, we all know how much cash they're burning on a weekly basis. So between 80 and 100 million, they're burning cash just on infrastructure. And we know with 20 euro in a month, this is not sustainable. So there will be other solutions coming, like sponsoring, how we will work with that. So, and I think Julia can answer them back with her heart, and I think you can say something about that, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you. So I've been here since Sunday to build this up. This is just one part. The other one is on the rest of the wall here. So it's been a lot of work to hang it up there. And what really kind of struck me all week being in Davos, talking with a lot of people, seeing window shops, all saying AI is, here, so we better make it work. We better make some kind of business case out of it. And that's the way how we think about AI. The inevitability of, it's here now, it's a force of nature, but that's actually a very aggressive push from Silicon Valley, who built that narrative to make it feel like it is the way forward. And I think like we're heading towards what I call digital heteronomy, which is the opposite of autonomy, where in businesses we make ourselves very dependent on AI, but also as human beings. We become very obedient to the machine, the industry, but also our own prophecy, because we're leaning on AI to tell us where to go, what to buy, but also we use now ChatGPT as some kind of therapist or friend or companion. The trust in the model is very, very high. But the thing is, ChatGPT is rewarded for sounding plausible, not for being right. And that's a very big difference. So the truth is replaced by confident sounding plausibility, because this confirmation bias pushes you to keep on having a conversation. And there are so many ways in which AI isn't reflecting truth, because it's reflecting the internet, and the internet is biased, it's unfair, it's unequal, it's not some kind of reality. And there are many ways in which you can affect that reality there as well. So people can like inject the internet with certain voices, political voices, products, but also build it in a way that we know from, for example, search optimization. We also have that now with geo, with like a generative optimization. And that's been happening. So you can see that already this directory is very much towards the companies that are very capable and very well of making content that the LLM really likes, really favors. And also then, of course, OpenAI makes some decisions there to push certain voices and to mute others. And now they're experimenting with ads. They're rolling it out actually as we speak. I thought about this summer. I was like, okay, they're losing so much money. So they're probably going to move in some kind of monetization way, because that's how it goes on the internet, right? They build some kind of beautiful, amazing idea and platform, and then from there they need to monetize vulnerabilities, data, and all these kind of things. And what is happening now is when generative AI and predictive AI are merging, and it's not really kind of shaping any reality, because it will be impossible to distinguish a generated answer from a sponsored one. Imagine that you wake up in the morning, you had a rough night, as I had last night because Davos, right? And I will ask ChatGPT, like, okay, I didn't sleep so well, like, what do you recommend? And it says, like, okay, go easy on caffeine because that will spike your nerve. So buy this, I don't know, mushroom cacao tea. And it will kind of steer you in certain directions. And because the trust in the model is so high, we can't distinguish, like, there's actually kind of a sponsored answer there. And especially because it's picking up on all these kind of things from conversations that you had before. So it's merging that predictive AI that we already know from Google, from Meta, and from all these big tech corporations who are very, very capable of extracting, well, data from infinite platforms, combining it all, and know, how to target you specifically, but also use generative AI to either answer that or to build a new reality. So it means that we don't even have a shared reality anymore with that, because we all experience the world through the lens of our own tailored experiences. And I'm very, very, afraid of that being rolled out and what that will do with our trust, reality, notion of what is truth in politics or in media, for example. So yeah, that's something that I'm very concerned about. So you can experience that for yourself.
Amazing. Thank you for that.
Thank
you very much. So in between the sessions, have a look at it and try to make your opinion out of it. I think that's important. Also, an important point is on that topic is transparency, because all the AI, most of the AI is black box. You don't know how the results are made. So transparency, but that's a discussion in another panel as well. Yes, I'm gonna. If there are questions, can you note them until the end? That would be amazing. All right. So the next question is for Stijn, and I'm having a technical problem, so we'll take the question. So, Greg, can you move the mic to...
Raise your hand, please.
I'll speak up.
No.
I'll speak up. I mean,
It's for the recording.
I assume that we're always influenced by something, AI or something else. Now, AI, and speaking of something that is happening today, OpenAI announced that it's going to do ads on ChatGPT. Now, what is preferred, to be influenced by one company or by multiple companies that are advertising and influencing on that algorithm?
Yeah. So of course, like the matter of free will is, a very large discussion. But the thing is, what I also try to clarify with the installation, with the conversation. So in the installation, I'm challenging ChatGPT to reveal its own understanding of how it's inflicting reality. So for example, it explains that even there is a risk of really eroding truth because of this choice, because it will be, even though when we have an automation bias, we trust these models instantly to be, like trustworthy and objective because it's based on data and statistics. With another human, you kind of assume that there's another bias or there's some kind of narrative behind it. And on Instagram or other platforms, we kind of have that notion as well. But with this, the trust is so high because of this automation bias, because it even explains itself that it will be, even when it explains ads, so when it's specified this is an advertisement, people will just assume it's a plausible truth or plausible enough. And I think that's really striking, because even though they knew the risk will like erode that, and it's, yeah, the notion of that it's true is just on a whole different level than we've seen before.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for this question. Let's move to Steen. If AI is meant to help teams and partners reach better agreements, why is it still so hard for people to trust the data and the system behind it? And why does that hesitation, reveal a deeper mistrust? I know we are afraid of everything that is new. I know it's lots of time black box and we don't know how the reasoning is from the machine to come to the result. So I know there are lots of fears against that. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, Steen.
Yeah, sure. So good morning, everyone. Maybe like in the intro, I'm not the AI guy. Although I'm developing a tool based on AI, I'm not the AI guy, I'm not the tech guy. So my input is here really coming from my experience in negotiation, how people and organizations work together, how they trust each other. But nevertheless, I'm quite supportive towards those tools, towards those tech solutions, because AI has the enormous possibility, opportunity to support people, to support organizations, to take well-informed, efficient, fast decisions with better outcomes. And that is, of course, critical in negotiation. Because what you're doing in negotiation is constantly calculating and finding the midpoint, where's the most value, based on the information you have at that moment, the data on that moment. And the data or the information consists of the information on your side. For example, in a business case, your costs, your budget, your interest, your stakeholders' interest. The real issue is the data and the information you get from the other side of the table. Why is that? People, as a natural, tend to distrust the other party. Why? Because there are 1,000 books of negotiations, there are 1,000 frameworks and theories supporting people how to negotiate, how to collaborate. But in the end, people tend to claim value rather than to create more value. They rather want to win the negotiation over the other party, rather than just to get the most value out of the deal. That creates the fact that you are constantly fearing that every information I give to you, you will use it against me. So, and that's the real issue, and that's a little bit the paradox or the trust issue that comes in. The longer you're given less data, less interest, less information to the other party, the more difficult it becomes for the other party. It comes with a good solution, it comes with a good deal. And then the paradox kicks in and says, see, you're taking advantage of me because you come with a bad deal, come with a bad solution. And this is even...
You mean, sorry to interrupt you mean that interaction with the machine, you transporting that with the machine, or you just...
That's without the machine even. So without the machine, in every negotiation, everything you do, certainly in business, but we see in geopolitics as well, constantly saying what you're trying to say is you don't give your real interest behind it. And then comes the machine in place. So when AI becomes even more complex, because in the end, AI needs to be fed with data. AI needs to be trained. So why, if you don't trust the data that is fed, if you don't trust the other party is giving that information, why would you trust the outcome of that AI? Because you're fearing that the other party maybe is taking advantage, and that's a funny thing about the marketing, etc. So you're fearing that maybe the other party is taking advantage of it. So why are you trusting the outcome of that AI? And that brings me actually the main question of the panel. And I think the main question was, what is reality, and who decides what reality is? In my opinion, everyone has their own reality. And reality for me is just the reality where you believe in, whether that's correct or not correct. I think Davos is the perfect situation where it's very clear that some reality can be correct, another one cannot correct. It's just reality where you believe in. And that's, I just want to end with just the funny anecdotes. In my hotel yesterday, there's a sauna. And a few weeks ago I bought myself a new smartwatch, a sport watch. And I asked myself, can I wear it in the sauna? So I asked two things. I did two things. I asked my best friend, who has the same watch, and I asked AI. AI said no. my best friend say yes. Guess what? I trust it.
He still has his watch on, so it must be working.
I'm still wearing it, so.
Right. Thank you, Steen, for this. So we see that the human reflex, the machine is still have hard times to override or overrule it in some kind of way. But sometimes it does, but still the reflex is not letting it overrule. But we know, like what Julia was saying also, it's going to be vaguer and vaguer, the strategy that they will be using. So when will we know it's coming from a machine or it's humanized or etc.? So yesterday at dinner also we had an anthropological discussion about, like machines should look like machines and not like humans to make the difference. So this is also part of the discussion. So I'm going a bit to Carla, so I'm going to make it up to you, so because I forgot you in the beginning. So humans are overriding that. So, and when you do workforce transformation in organizations, you work with humans. So, and sometimes big egos. We had a big one here across the street yesterday. So you see what's going on. So I would like to know from you, what is the, what is the workforce transformation that is going on with all the data and all the technology that we're having today? So how do you see that?
Yes, what I see is actually that many companies are measuring AI in regards to the usage. If they're drafting things faster, output even in that regard, but we're not really looking into the quality of the output, the judgment that needs to be included within this kind of results. So I think that's an issue right now in regards to thinking, can we do things faster? But it's not really faster, it's just to make sure, it's actually understanding that human judgment, human agency needs to be incorporated, needs to be on top of it. So that definitely is a matter of setting clear rules, expectations, the culture of the company, and those are things that we always need to make sure to put human at the center, to make sure that AI is working for us, not the other way around.
Cool, thank you for that. So we talked about humans and the machine, and we are afraid to being overridden. So I'm going to Vincent now. Thank you for being here. And the thing is that you went to Paris to the AI Safety Summit, and you work with the machine itself and the algorithms that are behind. So probably that will be your angle. Is that and then you noted a trend at the AI Safety Summit that the conversation has really shifted from safety to geopolitics, everything, and I said in the beginning also, it's a cultural battle that is going on in some kind of way. So and when you have culture, you have geopolitics, of course. So how's your take on that one? So from the machine side, of course.
Yeah, this is getting close to the crux of the problem, right? Like, how do we reconcile safety with how it's being rolled out? And I know this is a little bit dangerous with the Davos crowd, but I'm going to start, if I'm allowed, with two very quick yes-no questions. Who here has used GPT, Gen AI, over the last... it's funny that you already... over the last 24 hours, let's say. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Who here believes that these tools need to be regulated more? So this is, and I know this was not a very well-posed question, right? Regulated more, what does it mean? So I admit, but still, this response is very much in line with what international research is showing. A lot of people are using it, but a lot of people are also worried that these things need to be controlled or regulated more. And then there's like a funny, well, it's not that funny, but there's like a weird thing happening that in the media, scientists are often positioned at opposite sides, because that's what media also does. They polarize things. But if you look deeper, then you see that even the scientists who disagree on both sides of the spectrum, they actually converge more and more towards we need to start understanding these tools better, and we need to start controlling them or aligning them to human values. And as for the policymakers, I'm often struck by the fact that this is a new technology that came in our society over the last 3-4 years. That it's only that, and many policymakers, I think, are making, the false dichotomy that research into controlling or aligning or safety means that you slow it down. They think that there's this dichotomy happening, that we have to choose between either of them. And so often they make the metaphor of, let's not do research into the brakes of the car, but let's, look into how fast they can drive. But if you think about it, brakes and steering wheels and shock dampers, they allow cars to drive faster. It's because we have brakes that we can make faster cars. And so there's this false dichotomy that adding insight into how they work is going to slow us down. And part of it is based on national interests, because nations believe that you need to be the first in doing this. But there's like a clear tragedy of the commons happening there, because everybody's racing to be the first in having all the user engagement, and therefore the commons are actually going to be hurt by this. And perhaps to come back to the car analogy, I think, or flight analogy, I think it's weird that if you listen to what the makers of these models are essentially writing and saying in public, they're essentially saying like, we're building this tool. Some even say we're growing this tool, and we don't really know what that tool is going to do. We don't know the capabilities. We don't know exactly how to steer it. We don't know how to control it. Imagine that you go into a car factory buying a new car, and the car salesman tells you like, sure, I don't know how fast it drives, perhaps it flies. I don't know where the steering wheel is, but here, go ahead and let's make sure that everybody's having fun. And so for some reason, for all the other technologies, society has like paced up and found a way to regulate things and at the same time allow for innovation. And we are now stuck in this weird moment in time, and I'm sure we can get out of it, where this false dichotomy still exists. But I'm a big proponent of making these developments more public, that the public has ownership into the AI, and that we at the same time find like a responsible and an aligned way to roll it out in society.
Cool, yeah, I think that's a super interesting discussion. In that level, it's also what we said before about the transparency. Also, it's better to have policymakers should have come to this room as well, because you need to understand the ecosystem before you can start shifting. It's what we're doing at the Shift as well, try to understand how it works. Indeed, because I was at a dinner Monday evening with stock market quoted CEOs, and they were all pushing top down with lots of money AI projects in their company, not knowing what the outcome will be. And of course, they're not adopted. They fail what their beginning goal is, of course, because they're done in another department. They push like that with a different narrative from the beginning. So you're right. I think that's something we're driving blind for the moment there for a big part. All right, this leads us to the third round, if we can call it like that. It's building a different future. So with all these discussions we had, is like we're having understanding now, like the ecosystem, what are the problems and the challenges, and what does now looks, or how would like responsible or maybe even aware governments, or how would like aware policymakers should look at, and not saying I want to capture that country or do this, but really with technology, because I'm a techno-positivist. I believe that technology can make a better society, but you need to do it. You need to do it in an aware, like way. So yeah. So how would the panel? And I'll start with Hande. So yeah, we mapped that whole landscape. So, and we're also making our workforce a little bit anxious for what's coming. And you advised boards and government organizations. So yeah, when does that when can we point out to delegate those decisions to AI and not work against your, or coming to a governance failure, or work against your strategy that you have as an organization or a company? So how would you solve that?
Thank you. I mean, for the future, I think we need to start with owning our responsibility in this transformation, because the regulators, as Vincent said, regulators will be late. And I mean, they were always late in regulating the things, and especially in AI advancements and in this transformation, they can't keep up with, and they won't, and they can't keep up with these developments. And even if they will be on time, the regulators will tell us what not to do. But in what to do side, we have millions of options. This is what we call like AI ethics and responsible use. Yes, you can't use the data of mine, but what to do with my data in your company is up to you. And that's why we need to define a clear line here. This is what I believe. And to be able to do that, we need to simplify the terms, like governance of AI. So what do we mean with that? The first one is the explainability. If none of the human beings in a company can't explain why the decision was made in human terms, not in AI terms, not with algorithms, then there is a failure of governance. The reversibility. If you can't predict the consequences of what AI will do, and if you can't undo them, then there is a governance issue. So it's easy to undo the product recommendations, but when it comes to termination of a job contract, approval of an asylum application, or approval of a medical treatment, then they can't be easily undone. So reversibility is the second issue. And the third one that we can own and be responsible of is the accountability. Do we have anybody in our company, in our organization, who will be accountable of the decisions and the consequences of AI? So basically, the failure in governance starts at the moment when no human being knows how the decision was made, and we don't know anybody who is accountable of the consequences. And the thing is, governance didn't come to our lives with AI. I mean, do we allow companies to declare their financial statements without audit? No. Do we allow the pharmaceutical companies to release their drugs without trial? No. Then why would we allow that genius capability to decide on things which will have consequences without oversight? So that's why I think we, board members, leaders, us, investors, we all have responsibility in this transformation to own, to govern our choices in using LLMs, our choices in implementing the AI in our company, asking the right questions. So this is our responsibility. Yes, the governors will, regulate things, but again, in ethical choices, we need to make it very clear with the agents.
True. And I see also a parallel with when the internet came. The technology moves so fast, and policy comes like years after. So at that time, because I had startups in the early internet days, you had code of conducts that was try to auto-regulate it. So that's like you said, the responsibility of everybody, because the regulator is not ready yet, and he's just coming after.
Just one thing. So the trade-off, as Vincent said, because I was also the innovators, the people who are seeking efficiency, who wants to do the efficiency, or they see innovation will slow down with the governance, that trade-off is fundamentally wrong. So any reputation damage that will cause by the decision of AI will wipe out all the efficiencies that AI will create.
True. All right. So, Julia pointed out with her art and her statements that we are having this framework of rights. We have that, whatever it's AI is or not. And then Stijn went and diagnosed we have some kind of a trust problem. So I would like to ask to Stijn. So when we do negotiations, we have also lots of emotions going on. So an AI is taking emotions away, so the machine could take that partially away, or you could trust maybe a decision better because is influenced by emotions, so it might be a better decision? ?
Now we come to the funny part, the opportunity side of the question.
Yes.
And I just want to explain it with some figures. There is a business school in Copenhagen who has a study that says at the negotiation table, 42% of the transaction value is just left at the table, lost, completely lost, never used, just because of the lack of trust. just because the other party is fearing that the data you are providing the other party, they will take advantage of you. 42% may say nothing to you. Let me explain it a bit. If you just take the 1,000 largest companies in the US, take the revenue, just only use the portion which is negotiable. It's procurement, sales. If 42% is lost at the table, you say about 3.25 trillion US dollar is lost, left at the table, never used. And for the only reason you are fearing to provide data. There is a lack of trust in the other party, just lost in the air, never used. I'm coming from Belgium. We have a big national debt. Just by giving a solution to this, the Belgian national debt is solved in an instant. So what I'm currently doing is I'm working together with really some global leaders in negotiation on this to build an AI tool that deals with that trust. In a normal negotiation, you negotiate 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 variables. Most of the time, price, and that's it. In every negotiation, there are more than 100, 150 variables that you can negotiate. That you never come because you're fearing that to speak out about these variations, about these variables, about this cost. We're now living in a time that AI can easily calculate a perfect midpoint, a perfect point where you can reach the most value of every party just by giving the data. But you're not giving the data. So we are building now a tool that keeps the trust away, so you don't need to trust the other party. The tool is now making what we called a third neutral reality. And I said before, reality for me is the reality where we believe in. And what do negotiators do? What are they doing? They work with 2 realities and they build a new negotiated reality based on those realities that everyone believes. And we are making a third reality where we will calculate the midpoint where it's reached the most value out of the deal without you worrying providing the data. Your data is kept secret, your data is kept safe. So the more you give data to the tool, the more the AI can calculate it for you without fearing that the other party will take advantage of you. And in the end, now it comes to, like I said, do we trust the output of the AI in the end? And then maybe I make the parallel with art, with your art and with ads, for example. In the end, it's just what people believe it is. And if they see the numbers, if they see the value, they will believe it.
Yes, indeed. But, of course, Stijn, you're not the only tool. There are different tools on the market, and companies are using different AI tools as well, which every time are giving another reality almost. Because we talked about the culture battle, so they're at least cultural influenced. So if different departments are using different tools, and it's a question to Carla, if departments are using different tools, how do you reconcile that completely, and how does that impact the workforces? Because people are coming together and having meetings and having different realities then.
Sure. So the fact that people are using different AI models in general, you know, that is general. There's nothing we can do about that. However, what companies can do is actually establish clear regulations, data, what is allowed, who's accountable, these kind of things that can actually make them resilient to the outside kind of like influences. So, you know, if you have like 10 different files that you need to look into, people are not sure where to go exactly, this is how the culture fails. You need to make sure that within your companies, there is this established regulation. So for example, if a company is interested in becoming very customer-centric, you know, they need to make sure that everything is really verified before it goes out the door. If the company is looking into being a learning kind of like a setting for, that's their goal, then there needs to be a space for people to be able to learn, to fail, to have shared kind of like sessions on that. So this is the kind of like redesign of a workforce that needs to take place in order for AI to not only function properly, but that actually can scale.
Right, great, thank you, Carla. So that was the workforce side of the silo, if we can call it. Let's go to Vincent. Let's go to the math side. And we all know that math didn't change the last 50 or 60 years, at least. Yeah. So there's no different maths, but still, like we have better tools now, and I can imagine that AI can also cross those silos of different AIs. So if I can call it that, today. Look, with my company, Accenture, we are doing hybrid AI. So we're integrating different types of AI to create value. So I can imagine that AI becomes smarter and can be able to guide humans also to see those inter-silo ways of working. You have a comment on that, or how do you see that from a mathematical point of view?
Yeah. Well, indeed, I wanted to continue also on the advantages that AI is bringing also to scientific research. Honestly, it's one of the carrots, if you think about it, why society is kind of accepting Gen AI or AI in general, is that it might give us tremendous breakthroughs in science, in medicine. So those are actually the things that I'm very optimistic about. I often feel that in debates about the future of AI, if you talk to people and you put them on two quadrants, it's like a mathematical thing. One quadrant being, how critical are you with respect to how they are being adopted and deployed in society? And the other one being like, how impressed are you by their output? Then you often see that people who are more impressed by the output turn to be a little bit less critical, and people who are not impressed by the output are very, very critical. So you kind of have a correlation there. And what I'm trying to propagate here, or at least that's where I'm standing, is that I'm extremely impressed by their output. It's like almost undeniable how strong they have become over the last just 12 months, if you think about it. Just to give a few examples, math used to be one of those topics where LLMs are bad at, language models, right? And then, 18 months ago, reasoning models came out and they're acing all of the math exams. We are at a point where we cannot think of reasonable math questions anymore that we know the answer of, and LLMs don't know the answer of. So just to give you an idea, it was very humbling. Yeah, our research group participated last year in a research project which was called Humanity's Last Exam. I admit it's a little bit like a dramatic name, but and the question was very simple. If you can think of a question that is well posed, that you know the answer of, and none of the SODA models, state-of-the-art models, consistently don't know the answer to, then your question is being added to the data set. And as a scientist, being added to a data set, that's like
that's like wow.
One of the highest
Your
dreams.
Davos
Yes, that's like utopia, right? So we had quite a lot of incentives to think about it. And an entire group was thinking about it for weeks and weeks, and many of us had to come to the conclusion that we cannot define, closed questions anymore, where you don't, deliberately introduce, human touch kind of elements, but closed questions that we know the answers and LLMs don't know the answers. So I think we have to look, the reality in the face and admit that they have come to a point where they are better at most cognitive tasks, at least when I compare them to me. And at the same time, we shouldn't, resort to some kind of sentiment like the overlords have arrived and let's not be critical about their outputs anymore. And that's a very difficult balance to keep, right? Like, on the one hand, admit that their outputs are very, very strong and very, very good. And most Turing tests where you try to see whether behind the screen somebody is an AI or a human being, most Turing tests are actually passed. That is also like, another update that we need to make. Well, if we can find a way to kind of balance these two things, I think we're already a far away. And honestly, like perhaps as last anecdote on that realm, if you want to see two scientists fight, you go to an AI safety conference and you ask, what is the biggest danger that AI is posing to us? Because a lot of AI safety researchers, despite the fact that they are all working towards, let's make this tool safer, many of them are talking about many different cases, and that is because they are posing many different dangers to society. Hyper-persuasion, superhuman persuasion at scale, micro-targeted, exists right now. job loss, skill atrophy, ecocide. I mean, I don't want to start the day too dark here, but it's quite a list.
We're all techno-positivists, so go on.
And that is, I think, what we should find. Like, look the truth in, like, look at the reality as it is, and at the same time, try to make the shift that is needed to bring this into a healthy, sustainable world.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. Very interesting. So also, can we pass the mic to Julia, please? Ask a question, or Julia has a point to make. But what I found also important is we need to see that, like, I'm a strong believer in reinforcement learning, so that we have some kind of, not control, it's not the right word, but like steering how reality is going, because your reality is different than mine, which is logic, and you will use AI in a different way than I. So this is and AI gives us that possibility. So why not go that direction? And Julia, you wanted to say something about the mathematical approach.
Yeah, before we talked about policy, and I think it's very, very interesting that there is something really big happening and that nobody actually is talking about, and that is that there is a lobby from Silicon Valley happening to change the GDPR as we know it. I mean, there are many flaws within the GDPR. It's not perfect, not at all, but at least we do have a basic framework of human rights here in Europe. And what Silicon Valley now wants to do is they want to change the for example, definition of personal data into non-personal data. So all personal data can, of course, be part of AI training processes. And the lobby is very fierce and very, very dangerous because they put a narrative on that it will enforce European businesses. This will be great for Europe because now all their businesses can also explore, the AI space. But this is, of course, favoring themselves. And I think there is a vote very, very soon in the European Parliament. And I think we really need to stabilize this from happening and really avoid this from happening. And I think it's really interesting for me to work both as an artist and also as the ambassador of the Dutch Data Protection Foundation on these kind of matters, because I feel like, especially with these rights, I've been very, very interested in researching rights as a practical kind of thing, but also as more of a philosophical concept, because that's how my imaginary brain, I think, goes. For example, we have the right to be forgotten, which is very practical. You can, ask a company to erase your data, to maybe search fresh or start over. And I think it's very interesting because the practicality is almost impossible to act on, because if you click somewhere, that data is already multiplied with infinite companies. So it's really tough, and it puts all the responsibility on users to understand where your data goes, how it flows, how it directs, and then to get that back. So I think, for example, with the right to be forgotten, I'm imagining some kind of sphere where you can just move without being traced and also without being predicted. Because I feel like we become very, like the things that, we're almost forgetting about the things that are not within our algorithms. We don't see the things that are outside of the reach, outside of the scope of the algorithms that are feeding kind of the choices that we're making.
Of course, yeah.
And that is building that reality.
True, no, that's the right of being forgotten is an important point. I agree with you on that, but it's virtually impossible today. Yeah? It's
so that's why we really have to kind of reconsider how these things are manifested within our society.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll need to round up a bit. So I'll have one or two questions from the audience. So we're getting there now. So if you have a question, please take the mic and ask for which panelist or for everyone, so we can quickly answer. And
quick question. My name's Jeff Moore from Canada, and this right to be forgotten. There was an interview I did years ago that I couldn't find on the internet, so I just asked my kids, and they said, "We'll get it for you," and they did. Time machine, right, as one example. So I'm just wondering.
Please keep the mic because we're recording.
Sorry. So just wondering, with things like time machine, and I'm not in this space, so I'm sure there's tons of things, but how about those right to be forgotten, and how realistic is that? And are AI tools going into things like time machine as well to get everything?
Yes.
For whom is this question?
Oh, sorry.
For Julia.
Yes, Julia.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think the final part probably yes. Well, I think the right to be forgotten in that sense, of course, you have the erasure of Google searches, but you also have the part where you can ask a company to delete your data. So, for example, to ask Meta or Netflix or whatever to erase all your data. And I think that part is more precious to me, where I think it's very important because we're constantly living within these margins of algorithms, you know, moving within the walls that are constructed with these bio-algorithms. And I think it can be very healthy to erase sometimes and to start, because otherwise we are kind of, you know, in these echo chambers or however they call it. Or we can also maybe think about, for example, swapping algorithms. So I can see through the lens of your algorithm to see what do you get to see on your timeline, on what your results, on your conversations, because I think that will get a notion of some kind of a new shared reality. And I think it's very interesting to be more playful about how it's actually deciding for us. And I think for me it's more about that kind of how it's built, these reality around us, rather than preserving the internet as it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. One or two more questions. Yes, here in the front, and I will go in the back afterwards. Please be short, because we don't have much time anymore.
I have a question which is mostly for Stein and Vincent, probably, which is about trust. You insisted, how can we trust? We should beware. But isn't there also another risk, which we trust too much? Because the AI are so convincing, and they can almost seduce us and convince that they are sycophantic and so on. I heard about a study about judges that they were told, you can take the input of the AI and follow it or not, and decide not to follow it or not. And actually they ended up following and trusting the AI more than they should have, because that there was some...
You made some wrong decisions.
Yep.
I'll let first Steen, and then Vincent, and then I'll end with Steen. Sorry.
Sure, I think your example is right on the spot. There is obviously a rational way to think about how much trust you would give to a certain thing and then calibrate it like that. Unfortunately, I think most users don't have a brain that operates like that. Most of it is emotional, and most of it is kind of being lured into a modus operandi where you don't know how you arrived there. So I kind of agree. It's something that we should learn as a society, but I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, and then maybe from my point of view, you need to build trust. You need to build trust step by step. One thing is just by liking the other person. My anecdote of would I trust the most, AI of my friend? I like my friend, so I trusted my friend. And the other thing is also, going back to the anecdote, is when you say something and then it must be real. Is it true, yes or no? Why do I trust my friend? Is that I tested it. I went to the sauna multiple times and my watch is still working. So he says something, he tested it, and it appeared to be true. In the end, I think that's how trust comes. When building it by relationship, by emotions, in the end, is it true what you're saying or not? And then you can build the trust step by step.
All right, thank you. One last question over there. Sorry, I gave already the mic.
Thank you very much. Dan is my name. I think this question goes primarily to Vincent, but actually to the entire panel as well, so feel free to jump in on the question.
And please present yourself and what you're doing. So.
My name is Dan. I wrote a couple of books on corporate innovation. Maybe some of you have read my work. Vincent, do you believe that we are actually at the maturity point of AI where we can actually start thinking about regulation, or are we too early to start regulating? We're too late. Where do you think we are on the maturity spectrum, so that we can start and have an effective conversation around regulations? And the question is to you and to everybody else on the panel that wants to chip in on this.
Okay, I can be very brief on this. Yes, absolutely. I think we should have started, the when to plant a tree 20 years ago, right? So we should have started a long time ago. I can give many examples of things that are happening now in society that if you would travel back 5 years ago and you would tell them this is going to happen in 5 years, many people would say, like, obviously that is not going to be allowed, right? That people can now buy on the internet robot voices that persuade on scale people for you for a certain subject. That for me is something that I remind myself every day, like, this is just allowed right now, apparently.
All right, thank you. We need to round up, otherwise we're eating the cake of the next panel, so we don't want to do that. Thank you very much. We started with provoking questions. And those questions had different angles on this. I hope you had like a trans-silo view on that. I would like to thank the panel for their input. It's time now to do a little bit of networking. Not long, because the next panel will be there. Thank you again.